So Creative Assembly has a big announcement today, or I mean, actually, if you're probably listening to this now, probably yesterday, on the 1st of November, about the new historical game coming with Total War. We know that it's going to be coming out here pretty soon, but they've given us a little bit of information here. So it's going to be a revisit to an older game that's already been out. So probably Rome Total War 2, or more than likely Total War Attila. But we do know that it's gonna. They flirted with the idea that this is not the next big historical game. That this is just going to be a Flashpoint DLC in the same kind of vein of Fall of the Samurai, for instance. You know, a standalone DLC that is going to be a whole new portion of the map, a whole new portion of history, new units, everything like that, but still related to its parent, and say Shogun, for the example of Fall of the Samurai. But I'm going to assume that it's Total War Attila for the extent of this video. But let's go into some of the things that they said in that announcement here, and one big thing that we'll go into. Then I'll go into pretty much what we already know from some leaked footage, or from footage that they've actually just shown us outright. Like, hey, here's a little showcase of stuff. And then we'll go into more or less my hypothesis, my hypothesis. But one of the big things that they said was, their kind of cryptic way of doing things was, beware of the crow. And that really kind of brings us into some of the screenshots that we've seen already revealed, right? So we've seen this video that says the concept art from the new historical content team's forthcoming campaign pack. That in and of itself kind of hints that, of course, we're not going to be getting the full brunt, you know, a third game or something like that. And that is something to note in the article. They said that we didn't think we'd ever do a third, but we're going back and forth between doing that. So their next game might be a Total War or a Shogun 3, or a Total War 3, or I'm sorry, Rome Total War 3. But I don't know how they could say that when they're going to have Warhammer Total War 3. You know what? Whatever. That's what they said. But still, on this concept art, we see on the gentleman's helmet a crow wings. Now, I don't think that that's all. Honestly, I just think it's just a concept artist sketching some stuff out. But if I were to read into this and say, beware of the crows, and this looks clearly like a Germanic warrior of some sort, and I'm going to just go out there and say a Viking. He has the same kind of Viking style armor, kind of like almost like a mix of a late Roman period chainmail, and Vikings at the time did wear a lot of chainmail. And I know that the later age of Vikings, especially towards like the era when they got involved in being the Varangian Guard for the Byzantium, they wore a lot of lemlar over chainmail. So although this is obviously not lemlar, this is clearly just chainmail. It even says right on the back head, chainmail above a wolf fur cloak. Is clearly a Nordic looking, or at least Germanic looking warrior of some sort. And the other screenshot we got was this kind of blurry coast of some portion of the game, and people have obviously assumed that must be the portion that's coming, and people have kind of since taken that picture, and we've obviously gotten a more sharper image of it. And what looks like is a screenshot of Ireland off the coast of Dublin, just north of Dublin. Someone actually went as far to show a straight up Google Maps of it. And you know, these are taken with a grain of salt. You know, there's a little bit of a tinfoil hat that kind of slips on. Some people are trying to decipher what that actual symbol is on the shield, but it's not. It's concept artist. Concept artist is trying to flesh together a total image and a total concept, or a total idea of what they feel is going to be represented in the game. It's not going to be historically accurate. It's, again, a concept artist. I mean, if we take a look at the Suebi in Rome Total War, they have the same sistole as their macromani, so of Attila. And that's just them doing things. It has nothing to do with them trying to give us little tiny hints here and there. It might mean something, but for the most part, I'm going to dismiss that symbol on the shield of the Germanic warrior. So we do have this Germanic warrior. We've got the coast of Ireland and north of Dublin. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and here's my hypothesis, my hypotenuse, my big theory here, is that we're going to see something that's going to be around the ancient Gaelic kingdoms, and also maybe like a Viking era. And I want to also include the ancient British kingdoms into this. So basically, you pretty much be looking at Scandinavia, Britain, Ireland, and you might even go as far north as Iceland and Greenland, depending on how they want to do this. If this is going to be Total War Viking Age, or Total War Saxons and Normans, or whatever they're going to do with this, or Total War Dublin. But it just kind of depends on what they do with this. And the crow, coming back to that kind of, beware the crow. And if we're taking a look at that Germanic warrior, he's got these wings on, like we were saying, you know, beware of Vikings, beware the crow wings on his head. But also, you know, the crow is represented in Irish mythology by Badab, B-A-D-B. And I'm sorry if I butcher a lot of these Irish or British words for my European followers. I'm not the best at them. They're so hard for me to pronounce. But that's the crow goddess of war. And there's a lot of connotations here, again, leaning towards an Irish, maybe not entirely Irish campaign map, but a large part of Ireland included in this, because you can get pretty detailed with this. The Irish kingdoms of old were pretty large, not large, but they were diverse. I mean, if you ever played Crusader Kings 2, that's where you started, because it had such an easy start place to kind of get a feel and lay of the land. But I mean, you've got Ulster, you've got Meath, you've got Connacht, you've got I think I pronounced that properly at the time. Leinster, you've got all these kingdoms here, and these kingdoms, they ebb and flow throughout Irish early history, and the northern Uníl and the southern Uníl, and how they kind of combine, and how before you get the Norman invasion, then after the Norman invasion, then the whole Gaelic resurgence, and then the Tudors coming back. Like, Ireland has a very, very, very long history, and a very torrid history of kind of redrawing these lines between how the kingdoms work and operate. And it would fit in really well, because around that era, the later 700s, or later 8th century if you want to say, there is a lot of Vikings going on. There's a lot of Norman and Saxony occupation of Britain. You've got a lot in that era, and in that small kind of geographical area as well. I mean, the earliest parts of Ireland, I mean, the map we just shown you, that's Ireland around 900 AD, and it would make sense if that was kind of the overall timeline that we went with. Because if we're looking then after that, the British kingdoms, you know, we kind of already see this in Total War Charlemagne. Charlemagne does have a lot of this a similar map, at least. We even have Mercia as a starting option for Charlemagne. And even on the overall map for Attila, we have Britain broken up into the inferior portion of it, and the northern, where the Picts are at, and because the Caledonians are on it as well. So you have a very little bit of Britain, but not a whole ton. And the ancient British kingdoms, you've got East Anglia, you've got Mercia, you've got Northumbria, you've got Wessex, and how that is all extremely important to one another, especially right now in pop culture. If we take a look at Vikings, or we take a look at the Last Kingdom, those are things that are stirring right now, and people are in the forefronts of people's minds. So if I was thinking, okay, how can I take a game like Total War Attila, and I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, when I was watching Last Kingdom on Netflix, I looked up how to play Wessex or Mercia or Saxons in Britain, and you can kind of get it in Charlemagne, because you can play as Mercia, but you can't get the full treatment. The full treatment, I think, would be in a game like this, where you can play all these kingdoms, or you can even have the rise of Alfred the Great, and how Alfred kind of unifies all of Britain. And even going into the last portion of this is the center or the middle of really the Viking Age. And the Viking Age, of course, is Vikings leaving out of Scandinavia, going all over the place. You'd have, the way I would envision this map is it would have Ireland, Britain, Scandinavia, Denmark, even parts of Denmark, maybe even northern Germany, or Germany in general, and like the Netherlands and the such. I'm not sure how much of Sweden and the such, but you get a good sense here. First, you'd have pretty much the northern portion of Europe, including Iceland and Greenland, and maybe even Vinland, which is, of course, North America. But I'd love to see a territory like that, where we spent so much time through so many Total War games on the actual heart of Europe, you know, in the Iberian Peninsula, in the Mediterranean Peninsula, the Greek Peninsula, in the Italian Peninsula. We spent so much time there. We spent so much time in France and in Germany, and then in Russia and Poland. But I'd love to just take a look at what happens north of that, because a lot of history happens there. I mean, Britain shoots all over the place as far as its borders go. I mean, the Picts all the way to the north. You've got a lot of options too for armies as well. So the Viking Age, I think, would be a really great semi-explored territory. We've already kind of seen it in Barbarian Invasion a little bit way back in the day, and I barely remember that damn game. But I think that as far as the options go and what we've already seen, you know, we've seen Danes, Angles, Jutes, and Geats as options for Total War Attila, but now they can finally kind of expand this north of what is already there. You know, you already have the Saxons starting in Germany or Netherlands type area, and it'd be great to just kind of see them already having a foothold into Britain at this point, or already kind of expanding north up into Scandinavia, and however they want to do that. So it would be a little more centered maybe around the Vikings being kind of like a horde faction that we see in Total War Warhammer 2, or some of the other Total War games, and having Ireland and Britain being a little more cemented, but kind of dealing with their own actual turmoil of each respective region. I think that would be really pretty obvious, and I think it would be a pretty awesome one, especially if you want to think of the long-term kind of history of how this pans out. I mean, like King Herod, that gets in the large conflict here in Britain that kind of makes Britain towards the end of it. He was at one point a Varangian guard for the Byzantium, so you have the Viking Age that can take you through a lot of even southern Europe if they want to expand that even more south. I don't think they want to keep doing that. I think they've kind of beat it to a dead horse. They pulped it and horsed it. They've made horse juice out of it. Whatever the hell the saying is, I don't know. I'm not a poet, but that is my hypothesis for things. That is my theory behind everything. I think we're going to definitely see something that's going to have ancient Gaelic kingdoms, ancient British kingdoms, and a Viking Age, a Viking presence that's going to rove through the part of northern Europe and up and down the Isle, the British Isle. But I'd love to see something like that. I think that's we're moving that direction. So you guys let me know what you think. Do you guys think that this is on point? Do you think it's actually... No, Titan Spark, it's nowhere near that. I think it's going to be here, here, and here. And you guys let me know what kind of eras you'd like to see, or what you think that this little flashpoint kind of campaign is going to include. I'm really excited to see what it is, because although I love Total War Warhammer 2, I got into Total War because of historical titles, and I would love to see more of those flesh out. I'm really excited to see what their next big one is. I know a lot of people are thinking like maybe Total War Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I would love. Like, who wouldn't want to play Lu Bu in this game? I don't know how you do it, but I've played so much Dynasty Warriors growing up that I'm sure he's just going to be ridiculously overpowered. I mean, that's the way it's got to be, right? But do make some comments here, guys. Let me know what you're thinking here. Give me your theories, what you think we're going to be seeing. I'd love to spitball some of you, because I know we have a lot of big history buffs on the channel. So do post ahead and let me know what y'all think. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one and take care.